The most feared mafia boss in the city met Millie Holloway on a rainy Thursday afternoon because she slipped on wet courthouse steps, nearly smashed her face into the hood of his black car, and then yelled at him for parking like he owned the whole street. She did not know who he was. That was the beautiful part. Everyone else did. The two men standing near the car went still before she even finished talking. The driver stopped breathing with one hand on the open door. A lawyer, under a grey umbrella, crossed himself and hurried in the opposite direction. But Millie stood there in her red raincoat, one knee muddy, one heel broken, a stack of city contract files clutched against her chest, and anger bright enough in her eyes to make Roman Vitale forget, for one strange second, that people were supposed to be afraid of him. "You could try leaving space for people who use sidewalks," she said, breathless from the fall and furious about the papers now sliding out of her arms. "I know that might be emotionally difficult for a man with a car the size of a funeral home, but I believe in growth." Roman Vitale did not answer right away. He only looked at her. He was tall, dressed in a dark coat that probably cost more than Millie's first apartment, with black hair, touched by rain, and a face so calm it made the whole street feel quieter. He had the kind of stillness that did not look peaceful. It looked trained. He did not move quickly because he had never needed to. The world moved around him. Men stepped aside. Doors opened. Conversations died before he reached them. But Millie Holloway had just accused him of having parking trauma, and the corner of his mouth moved before he could stop it. His driver looked horrified. Millie noticed that first. Then she noticed the silence around them, the sudden, sharp kind, the kind that gathered when powerful people entered a room, or when someone made a mistake everyone else understood before they did. Her fingers tightened around the files. Rain slid from the brim of her hood onto her cheeks. One paper slipped free and landed near Roman's polished shoe. He glanced down. Ridgeline Development LLC. The small, almost smile disappeared. Millie saw his eyes sharpen. Not widen, not soften, sharpen, as if the name on the page had opened a locked drawer in his mind. She bent fast to grab it, but Roman reached it first. He lifted the paper between two fingers, not reading loudly, not asking questions in front of his men, only taking in enough to turn his amusement into something colder. "That belongs to me," she said. His gaze returned to her face. "Does it?" "Yes, unless you also steal municipal contract amendments from public records offices, in which case this city is more competitive than I thought." One of his men made a quiet, choking sound, then looked away like he wished he had never been born with lungs. Roman handed the paper back. Slowly, politely, too politely. Millie snatched it and shoved it into the stack against her chest. She should have walked away then. That would have been wise. Millie had a sharp mind and a long history of ignoring danger when it looked too much like arrogance. She had spent her entire life surrounded by rich men who believed their money made them weather. They filled rooms. They darkened skies. They expected everyone else to carry umbrellas and thank them for the shade. Roman Vitale had the same kind of power around him, but his felt different. Not louder, quieter, more deliberate, like a knife placed gently on a table. "Are you hurt?" he asked. The question threw her more than the coldness had. Millie looked down at her muddy knee. Her stocking had torn. Her palms stung from hitting the pavement. Her pride was lying somewhere under his bumper. Only spiritually. Now he did smile. Barely. A small, dangerous thing, gone almost as soon as it appeared. "That sounds serious." "It is. I was having a very productive day before your hearse attacked me. My car was parked, in a threatening manner." His men did not laugh. Millie respected that. Terrified silence was at least loyal. She shifted the folders under one arm and tried to fix the heel of her shoe by pressing it against the curb. It gave a sad little crack and came loose in her hand. Roman looked at the broken heel, then at the courthouse behind her. then at the rain-soaked files in her arms. You came out of the records office with Holloway construction documents. Millie froze for 1/2 second. It was tiny. Most people would not have noticed. Roman noticed. She lifted her chin. I came out of a public building with paper. That happens. Ridgeline Development is not public paper. The street seemed to grow colder around her. Millie tightened her arm around the stack, pressing the folders to her body, like they were not just documents, but ribs. You read one line upside down in the rain. I read enough. Congratulations. Literacy is a gift. His eyes held hers. There was something almost amused in them again, but underneath it was a hard line of attention. Millie had seen that look before, mostly across boardroom tables, when men realized she was not there to bring coffee. It was the look people gave her when their first impression started dying, and they were annoyed by the funeral. "What is your name?" Roman asked. "Absolutely not." The driver's eyes flicked toward Roman, as if waiting for the sky to split open. It did not. Roman only tilted his head. "You yell at strangers, insult their cars, carry sensitive contract records through the rain, and refuse to give your name. I'm multifaceted. You are also being watched." That made the humor drain out of her so quickly she felt it in her hands. Millie did not turn around. That was the first smart thing she did all afternoon. Her eyes stayed on Roman's face, but her mind moved behind her, counting the soft sounds she had ignored. A car idling too long near the curb, shoes under the courthouse awning, the tiny wet squeak of someone shifting weight on stone. Gerald's people did not look like thugs. That would have been too honest. They looked like private security consultants, campaign aides, junior attorneys, men with clean coats and dead eyes who could say "ma'am" while destroying a life. Roman saw the change in her. He saw the joke leave her mouth, saw the math begin behind her eyes. "Who sent them?" he asked. "No one. You are a poor liar." "I am actually an excellent liar. I just don't waste talent on strangers." Roman looked past her shoulder. His expression did not change, but something in the air did. One of his men stepped away from the car without being told. Across the street, a man under the awning suddenly found interest in his phone and began walking fast toward the corner. Millie finally turned enough to see him. Brown coat, clean shoes, no umbrella. She knew him. Not by name, by type. Her father always had men like that around him, men who pretended not to hear anything until Gerald Holloway needed someone punished quietly. Her heart beat once, hard. Roman stepped closer, but not close enough to trap her. That mattered. She noticed it even then. "Miss Holloway," he said softly. The sound of her name in his mouth landed like a hand on the back of her neck. Millie looked at him. "You knew who I was. I know your father." Her laugh came out dry and humorless. "Everyone knows my father. He made sure of that." Gerald Holloway was the kind of man newspapers loved. Construction tycoon, civic leader, donor, patriot, builder of schools, bridges, hospitals, campaign careers, and, when necessary, lies. His smile was printed on business magazines and charity brochures. His voice lowered at fundraisers when he spoke about hard work and family values. He called waiters by name when cameras were near. He shook hands with union men in the morning and signed documents that ruined their pensions by lunch. In public, he was generous. At home, he was gravity. Everything bent around him. Millie had learned young that Gerald loved winning more than he loved any person. Her mother had learned it quietly and faded into a life of charity luncheons, polite headaches, and rooms where she never disagreed. Caleb had learned it and bloomed under it, turning into a younger, louder version of their father, with better teeth and worse instincts. Millie had learned it and became funny, because if she could not be taken seriously, she could at least make the room uncomfortable while underestimating her. She was 28, fat, sharp-tongued, and very good with numbers. Good enough that Holloway Construction's financial messes had begun finding their way to her desk, even though her name appeared nowhere near the executive chart. Good enough that Caleb brought her broken spreadsheets with the same tone he used to ask assistance for sparkling water. Good enough that Gerald had quietly doubled her consulting hours without changing her title. Good enough that when the company's books started smelling rotten, she was the first person to notice where the rot began. Not in the obvious places. Never there. Men like Gerald did not steal from the cash drawer. They built a new drawer, gave it a clean name, hired a lawyer to bless it, and dared anyone to understand the paperwork. Ridgeline Development LLC had first appeared inside a vendor reconciliation 3 months before Caleb's promotion gala. It was listed as a subcontractor connected to municipal site preparation, but Millie could not find equipment leases, labor records, insurance certificates, or tax documentation that matched the payments. Money moved in clean, round numbers through city development accounts, then through Holloway Construction, then into Ridgeline, then out again in smaller pieces that looked like consulting retainers, materials deposits, emergency permits, and political donations wearing cheap disguises. At first, Millie thought Caleb had done something stupid. That would have been believable. Caleb was very good at stupid when it came with applause. Her older brother had recently been promoted to regional vice president because Gerald liked the way Caleb looked in a suit, and because investors preferred sons with firm handshakes over daughters with actual answers. Caleb strutted around the office calling people sport, champ, kiddo, and sweetheart, depending on which insult he thought he could survive. He had once told Millie that numbers were more of a support function, while handing her a $12 million variance he could not explain. Millie had fixed it before dinner and let him take credit because, at the time, she still believed staying useful might one day become the same as being valued. Then she found Sandra Feltz. Sandra was elegant in the way expensive knives were elegant. Blonde hair, pearl earrings. Calm voice, a consulting firm with no real clients, a condo paid for through a trust connected to Ridgeline, and private dinners with Gerald that appeared on no calendar but left little fingerprints across expense reports, security logs, and one hotel invoice that Gerald's assistant had misfiled under charitable outreach. Sandra was not just his girlfriend. She was the soft hand on a very dirty machine. Millie had spent weeks building the picture. Transfer logs, contract amendments, city bids that had been adjusted after private meetings, fake emergency repair authorizations, payments routed through Ridgeline and returned as political favors. She found officials who approved projects before inspections, inspectors who signed forms on days they were not in the city, shell invoices for equipment that did not exist. And then the worst part, the part that made Roman Vitale's name suddenly matter. Someone was using old mafia rumors as cover. Holloway Construction had been spreading money through projects in neighborhoods where Roman's organization had history. Bad history. Loud history. The kind reporters liked. If anything broke open, the city would look toward him first. Gerald had built his crimes beneath the shadow of a more frightening man, confident that people would rather blame a monster they already knew than search for one smiling at ribbon cuttings. Millie had confronted her father once. It had been 2 months before the rain, in his office on the top floor of Holloway Tower, where the windows were wide enough to make the city look owned. Gerald stood behind his desk in a navy suit, silver hair perfect, his wedding ring shining under the lamp, though her mother had not been invited to dinner with him in weeks. Caleb had just left the room after bragging about a contract Millie had saved from collapse, and Gerald had looked pleased, not with her, with the smoothness of the lie. She had placed the folder on his desk. "What is Ridgeline?" she asked. Gerald did not touch the folder. That was how she knew he understood the question. Innocent men picked things up. Guilty men measured the person who brought them. Don't start something you can't finish, Millie. Her stomach had tightened. That's an answer. No, that's fatherly advice. You're moving money through fake city contracts. He sighed, almost fondly, as if she had disappointed him by becoming inconvenient. You always did enjoy making yourself sound important. I have wire records. You have copies of things you don't understand. I understand enough. Gerald finally sat, slowly. No, sweetheart. You understand columns and totals. You do not understand pressure. You do not understand politics. You do not understand what it costs to keep a company of this size alive. Bribery? His eyes hardened. There it was. Not anger, not surprise. Correction. The look he gave people who forgot their assigned shape. You have a good little consulting career because I allow this family name to open doors for you, he said. Do not mistake my patience for permission to embarrass me. Millie had felt heat climb her neck. She hated when he did that. Made her feel 12 years old and too big for the family Christmas dress her mother insisted would fit if she stood properly. You're breaking the law. Gerald leaned back. The law is a room full of men. I know most of them. That sentence stayed with her. Not because it scared her, though it did. Because it was the first fully honest thing he had ever said to her. He told her that if she spoke, he would make her look unstable, bitter, jealous of Caleb, angry because she had never been promoted. He would say she had fabricated documents after being denied a leadership role. He would leak her emails, twist her jokes, question her professionalism, bury her in legal fees, and make sure no serious firm touched her again. He did not raise his voice once. Gerald never needed to shout when he could destroy calmly. Millie left his office with her hands shaking inside her coat pockets, and then she kept digging. That was the part Gerald had never understood about her. He thought cruelty made people smaller. Sometimes it did. Sometimes it pressed them into a shape so sharp they could cut through walls. Now, standing in the rain in front of Roman Vitale, holding the files she had pulled from the courthouse records office, Millie realized her father had already begun tightening the net. Roman looked toward the corner where the brown-coated man had disappeared. You should not be alone. I'm not alone. I have a broken shoe and unresolved rage. Your father's man followed you from the building. Maybe he enjoys architecture. Millie. Her name sounded different this time, less like information, more like warning. She hated that it made her feel steadier. I don't need saving, she said. I did not offer to save you. Good. I offered the truth. You are being followed. Also not new. His eyes narrowed slightly. How long? Millie looked away first. She hated that too. She hated every tiny surrender her body made before her pride could stop it. Long enough. Roman was quiet for a moment. Rain tapped against the roof of his car. His driver stood frozen by the open door, clearly living through the strangest afternoon of his professional life. Ridgeline, Roman said. What do you know about it? Millie laughed once, but there was no humor left in it. Enough to ruin dinner. I dislike vague answers. And I dislike men who ask questions like court orders. I know what your father has been doing. That stopped her. Roman held her gaze. Not all of it. Enough. Millie's fingers pressed into the wet folders. Then why hasn't anyone stopped him? Because your father has spent years making his crimes look like other men's sins. Yours. Yes. She studied him then, really studied him. Not the coat, not the car, not the beautiful, frightening calm of him. His face, his eyes, the way he did not look offended by being suspected, only tired of being useful to men worse than himself. You're Roman Vitale, she said. The driver closed his eyes. Roman did not move. Yes. Millie took one step back before she could stop herself. He noticed, of course. The name had weight in the city. Not the glossy kind her father's name carried. Roman's name moved through whispered conversations, courthouse delays, police briefings, restaurant kitchens, campaign donor lists, and neighborhoods where people lowered their voices before saying Vitale, as if the walls might report back. He was called a criminal, a king, a ghost, a butcher, a businessman, depending on who needed what from him. Millie had never met him. She had seen one blurred photo in an article about organized crime influence near waterfront redevelopment. The picture had not captured him. Not the stillness, not the eyes. Not the strange, careful space he kept between himself and her now, as if he understood that fear could become another kind of hand on the arm. She lifted her chin, because backing away had embarrassed her. Your parking still needs work. His mouth moved again. I will speak to my driver. The driver looked betrayed. Millie should have been terrified. Part of her was. A soft, cold part under the ribs. But another part, the stubborn part Gerald had spent 28 years trying to sand down, felt almost relieved. Roman Vitale was dangerous, yes, but at least he did not pretend to be harmless. Millie had grown up with harmless-looking men. They were the worst kind. Roman glanced at the stack in her arms. You have proof. I have pieces. Pieces are useful. To whom? To both of us. There it was, the offer beneath the words, not dressed as kindness. Not yet. Millie smiled tightly. And what exactly would the most feared man in the city want with my damp paperwork? To clear my name from your father's mess. And then? Then I crush him. The words were quiet, not dramatic, not hot. That made them worse. Millie imagined Gerald's face if he could hear this conversation, not afraid at first. Gerald did not believe consequences applied to him until they arrived wearing shoes. He would dismiss Roman as a criminal and Millie as foolish. He would tell Caleb to handle the family embarrassment. Caleb would laugh too loudly, call her dramatic, and ask if she had finally found a man willing to tolerate her attitude. Her mother would look at the table. Sandra would smile into her wine. The city would keep clapping for the Holloway name until someone placed the right evidence under the right lights. The thought made Millie's throat ache, with something too old to be anger. Roman saw that too. You know he will come after you, he said. He already did. Not fully. Men always think I don't understand danger until they explain it to me. I think you understand danger very well. The answer was so direct that she had no joke ready. For a second, rain filled the space between them. Then Roman reached into his coat and removed a simple black card. No logo, no decoration, just a number pressed in silver. Millie stared at it. That is either very classy or very murdery. It is a phone number. Those can be both. Call when you are ready to stop running files through the rain. I wasn't running. You broke a shoe. That was an unrelated tragedy. His eyes dropped briefly to her foot. My car can take you home. No. She said it too fast. Roman's expression changed. Not offended. Attentive. Millie hated how much she respected that he did not push. Her father would have called her ridiculous. Caleb would have rolled his eyes. Half the men she worked with would have turned the refusal into a negotiation because they thought no from a fat woman came from insecurity instead of judgment. Roman only held the card between two fingers and waited. She took it because not taking it felt childish, and because a man in a brown coat had followed her, and because her father's shadow was getting long enough to touch the courthouse steps. Their fingers did not brush. Roman made sure of it. That should not have mattered. It did. I'm not your informant, she said. No. I'm not your damsel. No. I'm not going to be moved around like a chess piece because you and my father are having some rich criminal measuring contest. This time, Roman's smile was real enough to show in his eyes. I would never compare Gerald Holloway to a criminal with standards. Millie tried not to laugh, failed slightly. It came out small and unwilling, but Roman noticed, and something about his face softened before he hid it. Then a black sedan turned slowly onto the street behind them. Millie saw it reflected in Roman's window. Her stomach tightened. She knew that car. Holloway Construction kept a fleet of them. Gerald said it made executives look unified. Millie said it made them look like funeral staff for capitalism. Caleb had not laughed. Roman followed her gaze through the reflection. The sedan slowed. One window lowered halfway. Roman's men shifted at once. Millie could no longer pretend the day was only strange. Her arms tightened around the files, and she felt the awful familiar pressure of being watched by her father's world. Not seen, watched. There was a difference. Being seen meant someone understood there was a person inside the body. Being watched meant someone was measuring how to control it. Roman stepped slightly beside her, still not blocking her, still not touching. "Do you know the car?" "Yes." "Your father?" "His office." The sedan stayed there for 3 heartbeats. Then it pulled away. Millie exhaled only after it disappeared around the corner. Roman looked at her. "Where is the rest of the evidence?" She almost lied. It rose naturally, the way breath did. A lifetime habit. Women in families like hers learned to keep backup plans the way other people kept spare batteries. She had copies hidden in cloud folders. One drive taped beneath the drawer of her office desk. One with an old college friend who thought she was helping Millie prepare for a lawsuit, and one set of raw records in a storage locker under a name Gerald would not know. The papers in her arms were only the newest layer, but Roman Vitale was watching her like he already knew she had more than damp paper and anger. "Safe," she said. "Good." That surprised her. "You don't want to know where?" "I want Gerald not to know where." Millie looked at him for a long moment. The rain softened. Somewhere beyond the courthouse, a church bell rang the hour. The sound moved through the gray afternoon, low and old, and almost gentle. Millie thought of all the times she had stood in rooms full of men who smiled down at her while stealing the work from her hands. All the times Caleb repeated something she had said 10 minutes earlier and got praised for insight. All the times Gerald told her not to be emotional when she was only accurate. All the times her body entered a room before her mind did, making people decide she was soft, lazy, comic, harmless, hungry, easy to dismiss. They never saw the ledgers in her head. They never saw the knife behind the joke. Roman was looking at the knife. That frightened her more than being underestimated ever had. "I don't trust you," she said. "You shouldn't. At least you're honest about that. I try not to lie when the truth is more useful." That is such a terrifying sentence. I have many. Against every reasonable instinct, Millie smiled. Roman's gaze moved to it for one brief second, not in the hungry way men sometimes looked when they thought a woman's smile was permission. More like he had found something unexpected in the middle of a bad day and did not want to scare it away by staring too long. The warmth vanished from his face when his phone buzzed. He answered without turning from her. He listened, said nothing, then ended the call. "Your brother just left Holloway Tower," he said. Millie's stomach dropped. "Caleb?" "Yes." "How do you know that?" "Because after I saw Ridgeline on your paper, I asked my people to look." "You asked your people to look in the last 3 minutes. They are efficient. Disturbing. Yes. Why do I care where Caleb is?" Roman glanced down the street, toward the direction the Holloway sedan had gone. "Because he is on his way to your apartment." For a moment, Millie heard nothing. Not rain, not traffic, not the courthouse doors opening behind her. Only that sentence. Caleb knew where she lived, of course. He had helped her move once by standing in the doorway and commenting on how many books she owned. But he did not visit. Holloways did not visit Millie, unless they needed something fixed, signed, hidden, or forgiven. And if Caleb was coming now, right after Gerald's man had followed her from records, then the pretending portion of her life had ended. She looked down at the files. Roman's voice softened. Not much, just enough to become more dangerous. Let me take you somewhere secure. Millie laughed quietly, because panic had always made her funnier before it made her useful. You mean somewhere you control? Yes. At least you admit it. I control it. You may leave it. Those two statements have not historically traveled together. His face went still. He understood more than she wanted him to. Or maybe he only recognized damage because powerful men all left similar fingerprints, even when they used different hands. I will not lock a door behind you, he said. Millie looked at him then. There was no softness in the street, no music, no perfect rescue. Just rain, broken shoes, corrupt contracts, a mafia boss with a black card, and the knowledge that her brother was going to stand in her apartment with their father's voice in his mouth. She could refuse. She almost did. Pride rose fast, bright and stupid. She had protected herself alone for years. She had built the evidence alone. She had learned to laugh alone. She had eaten dinner alone. After fixing problems Caleb got paid to misunderstand. She knew how to be alone. Alone had never betrayed her. But alone had also nearly gotten her followed into the rain with stolen records in her arms. Millie looked at Roman's car, then at Roman. I'm not giving you the files. I did not ask. I'm not telling you everything. I do not expect you to. I'm sitting by the door. His mouth curved. Naturally. And if your driver makes one comment about my muddy knee, I'll haunt him. The driver stared straight ahead, pale and loyal. Roman opened the back door himself. I will warn him. Millie stepped toward the car, then stopped. One more thing. Roman waited. If this is a trick, if you use me to get to my father and then toss me aside like everyone else has, I will make your life extremely annoying before I die. Roman looked at her for a long second. Then he leaned slightly closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear it. Millie Holloway, I am beginning to suspect annoying you would be the more dangerous choice. She should not have liked that. She did anyway. She got into the car with the files on her lap and one muddy shoe in her hand, sitting close to the door, exactly as promised. Roman entered on the other side, leaving more space between them than the expensive leather required. The car smelled like rain, clean wood, and something faintly smoky. Outside, the courthouse blurred behind the wet window. As the car pulled away, Millie watched the city slide past, the towers, the traffic lights, the stone buildings where men like her father turned paper into power and power into protection. For years, Gerald Holloway had taught her that winning meant owning the room. Caleb believed him. Sandra used him. The city applauded him. But Millie had seen the numbers. Numbers did not care about speeches. They did not flatter sons. They did not lower their eyes at dinner tables. Numbers kept secrets only until someone patient enough asked the right question. Roman's phone buzzed again. He checked the screen. Your brother reached your building, he said. Millie's chest tightened, but she kept her voice light, because that was where she stored fear, when there was no room for it elsewhere. He better not touch my leftovers. Roman looked at her. Is that what you are worried about? No, but if I start with the big things, I'll scream. His expression changed, quietly, almost invisibly. Then he tapped the partition between them and the driver. Send 2 men to Miss Holloway's building. No confrontation unless her brother enters without permission. Millie looked at him sharply. I didn't ask for that. No. Roman. Her use of his first name changed the air. She heard it. So did he. He turned toward her fully. I will call them back if you tell me to. She studied him, searching for the trap. There was always a trap when powerful men offered help. A hook buried in the kindness. A debt hiding under the table. But Roman did not look patient in the way Gerald had. Gerald's patience was a performance. Roman's was restraint. There was a difference, and Millie hated that she could feel it. "Do not let them scare my neighbors," she said. "They won't. Do not let them touch Caleb unless he touches my things." Roman paused. "Your things? My laptop is there." "Ah, my backup drive is not," she added, because she wanted to see his reaction. His eyes warmed with something like approval. "Good." Millie looked out the window before he could see how much that pleased her. They drove deeper into the city, away from the courthouse, away from Holloway Tower, away from the version of the day where she went home alone and found Caleb waiting in her kitchen with his smug smile and Gerald's instructions. Roman did not ask questions for several blocks. That was strange. Men usually filled silence around Millie. They explained, advised, corrected, joked over her, or praised her in ways that felt like small cages. Roman let the quiet sit. Eventually, she could not stand it. "You're not going to interrogate me?" "I am considering the best way to begin. That is worse. I have been told." She shifted the folders on her lap. "Ridgeline is your starting point. I know that." "Not all of it." Roman turned his head. Millie opened the top folder just enough to show a page without handing it over. Ridgeline received payments through 4 city contracts tied to emergency infrastructure work. The contracts were inflated. Some by 10%, some by 30%, one by almost half. Holloway Construction billed for subcontractors, security coordination, materials storage, environmental review, and expedited permitting. Half of those expenses were fake. The other half were real enough to make auditors lazy. Roman listened without blinking. The money moved from the city to Holloway, from Holloway to Ridgeline, from Ridgeline into consulting groups tied to Sandra Feltz. Then parts of it circled back through donations, private investment vehicles, and campaign committees. It looks messy on purpose, but the timing is clean. Too clean. Gerald signs public deals, Caleb poses for pictures, Sandra moves the private money, and someone sprinkles your name near the ugly parts whenever the trail gets close to criminal exposure. Roman's face had gone cold. How? Security vendors, waterfront permits, labor disputes, old shell companies with addresses connected to neighborhoods people already associate with Vitale influence, a few anonymous complaints to city offices, not enough to prove anything, enough to suggest smoke. And when people see smoke near me, they assume fire. Exactly. The car moved through a yellow light. Rain streaked sideways against the glass. Roman looked at the folder. Your father is either very brave or very stupid. Neither. He's protected. That's better. By whom? Millie tapped the papers. That is the expensive question. Roman leaned back slightly. And you have the answer? I have names that keep appearing near the answer. Officials? Some. Inspectors. A deputy commissioner. 2 private attorneys. A judge's brother. A union consultant with suspiciously clean invoices. And Sandra. Always Sandra. She looks like a side affair until you follow the money. Then she starts looking like the room where everything changes clothes. Roman studied her in a way that made her skin feel too warm under her raincoat. Not because he looked at her body, though he did not avoid it. He looked at her as a whole person, which was somehow more intimate. Her wet curls escaping her hood, her red cheeks from the cold, her muddy knee, her broken shoe, the files, her hands, her mouth, her anger, her mind. You found this alone, he said. Millie closed the folder. Don't sound impressed. It makes me suspicious. I am impressed. She had no idea what to do with the simple honesty of that, so she frowned at him. Try sounding less like you're planning to recruit me into tax crime. I do not commit tax crime. Sure, that's where you draw the moral line. Tax crime is inelegant. Millie laughed before she could stop herself. It came out louder this time, filling the back of the car with surprised warmth. Roman watched her laugh, and for one strange second, the dangerous man across from her looked almost pleased with himself, not smug. Pleased, like he had won something small and did not know what to do with it. Then the driver spoke carefully from the front. "Mr. Vitale." Roman's attention snapped forward. "Yes. Car behind us. Since the courthouse." Millie's laughter died. Roman looked into the side mirror. His expression became empty in a way that made Millie's hands go cold. "Holloway?" "Different plates. Same sedan model." Roman nodded once. "Lose it." The driver turned smoothly at the next corner. Not fast, not dramatic, just controlled. The city shifted around them. One turn became three. A main road became a narrow street behind a hotel. The sedan remained behind them 2 blocks back. Millie gripped the folders. Roman noticed. "You are safe." She stared at him. "I need men to stop saying that like the universe gave them a certificate." He absorbed that without irritation. "Fair." The driver turned again, this time into a private underground entrance beneath a limestone building with no sign. A metal gate opened before they reached it. The car slipped inside. The gate closed behind them with a heavy sound that Millie felt in her bones. She looked at Roman. "You know this is exactly the kind of place where people disappear in movies. I own the building." That did not improve the sentence. He opened the door after the car stopped, but did not get out first. He waited. Millie looked at the underground garage. Clean concrete, soft lights, black vehicles parked in perfect lines. 2 men near an elevator turned away respectfully when Roman looked at them. No one stared at her muddy knee. No one smirked. No one asked why a fat woman in a red raincoat had just arrived with broken shoes and enough evidence to start a war. That unsettled her more than mockery would have. Roman stepped out and held the door, still leaving space. Millie got out carefully, one shoe on, one shoe in her hand. Her stockinged foot touched the cold floor. She winced and tried to hide it. Roman saw. "Do not," she said immediately. "I said nothing. You were thinking something expensive." His mouth curved. "I was thinking there may be glass on the floor." "Oh." He removed his coat. "No." He paused. "You are not putting your mafia coat on the floor for my foot. It is wool. That means nothing to me. It means it is warm. It means it has a dry cleaning bill. Millie." "No." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. His men seemed deeply invested in the far wall. Then Roman folded the coat over his arm and said, "Fine." That single word did something odd inside her. He disagreed. He could have insisted. He could have made a command sound like concern. Instead, he stopped. The elevator opened. Roman gestured toward it. "There is a conference room upstairs. You can review what you want to show me. You can call your home. You can leave whenever you choose." Millie stepped inside the elevator. "You keep saying that, because you keep listening for the opposite." The doors closed before she could answer. The elevator rose in silence. Not awkward silence, charged silence. The kind that hummed under skin. Millie stared at the numbers above the door and tried to remember every practical fact at once. She was in a private building owned by Roman Vitale. Caleb was at her apartment. Gerald probably knew she had gone to the courthouse. A sedan had followed them. She had given Roman more information in 10 minutes than she had given anyone in 3 months. Her broken heel dangled from 2 fingers like the least serious casualty of the day. The elevator opened into a quiet floor with dark wood walls, soft lamps, and windows overlooking the rainy city. It looked less like a criminal headquarters than a private library where billionaires came to confess to furniture. Roman led her past 2 closed doors into a conference room with a long table, a wall of screens, and a silver tray with coffee already waiting. Millie stopped. Roman followed her gaze. Coffee? You just had coffee ready? My staff is efficient. This is becoming a theme. He pulled out a chair near the door, not the head of the table, not beside him, near the exit. Millie noticed that too. She hated noticing. She sat, placing the files carefully in front of her. Roman sat across from her, not too close, hands visible, posture calm. The room smelled faintly of coffee and rain. For the first time since leaving the courthouse, Millie let her shoulders drop half an inch. Roman saw that, but he was wise enough not to mention it. Her phone rang. Caleb. The name appeared on the screen with a photo from 3 years earlier, taken at a family fundraiser, where he had an arm around her shoulder and a grin full of champagne. Millie had always hated that picture. Caleb looked charming. She looked trapped. The phone rang again. Roman looked at it, then at her. You do not have to answer. I know. She answered anyway and put it on speaker before fear could make her private. Caleb's voice filled the room, bright and irritated. Millie, where the hell are you? She leaned back in the chair. Lovely to hear from you too. Don't be cute. I'm at your place. Then you're lost. Dad wants the files. Roman's gaze sharpened. Millie looked at the folders on the table. Tell Dad lots of people want things. This isn't funny. It rarely is when you're speaking. Caleb exhaled hard. She could picture him in her small living room, expensive shoes on her rug, touching things like everything in the world belonged to men named Holloway. You need to stop whatever little performance this is before you embarrass yourself. There it is. What? The Holloway family emergency phrase. A woman noticing a crime is embarrassing herself. You don't understand what you're messing with. Millie almost smiled. You know, people keep saying that today. It's starting to feel like a support group for threatened men. Caleb's voice lowered. Dad can still fix this for you. Roman went very still. Millie felt something inside her close. Not break. Close. There had been a small, stupid part of her, even after everything, that wondered if Caleb knew less than she thought. If maybe he was arrogant but not corrupt, cruel but not dangerous. A decoration on Gerald's throne, not a nail in its legs. But there it was. Dad can still fix this for you. Not help, not explain, fix. As if she were the broken thing. No, she said softly. Caleb paused. No what? No, he can't. Millie, don't be dramatic. I'm not. I'm being very calm. That's why this should worry you. Roman's eyes stayed on her face. Caleb laughed, but the sound had a crack in it. You always do this. You get emotional, make everyone walk around your feelings, and then act like you're smarter than the room because you found a spreadsheet error. Millie looked at the window. Rain slid down the glass in silver lines. Her voice stayed light, soft, almost kind. Caleb, sweetheart, I have found enough spreadsheet errors to turn your promotion gala into a sentencing preview. Silence. Roman's mouth moved once, almost a smile. Caleb recovered badly. You're insane. No, I'm accurate. That's been the problem for everyone. You had it coming if Dad cuts you off after this. The words landed in the room like a slap. Not because they were new, because they were old. Because every family had certain sentences that carried years inside them. You had it coming. For talking back, for being difficult, for eating too much, for wanting credit, for asking questions, for not smiling when Caleb took her work and Gerald praised him, for not becoming smaller no matter how many rooms demanded it. Millie closed her eyes. When she opened them, Roman was watching her, with a calm so dangerous the light seemed colder. She spoke before he could. Get out of my apartment. Or what? Millie looked at the files. Then at Roman, then back at the phone. Or I stop protecting you from what's in these documents. Caleb breathed once, sharp. You wouldn't. And there it was, the real family belief. Not that she could not hurt them, that she would not. That her loyalty was so deep, so trained, so automatic, they could keep cutting pieces from it and still expect it to feed them. Millie smiled, and this time it did not shake. "You have always confused my kindness with poor math." She ended the call. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Roman said quietly, "He is a fool." Millie gave a tired little laugh. "Yes, but with excellent dental work." Roman did not laugh. He looked too angry for that, though the anger was controlled with almost frightening care. Millie placed her phone face down. Her hands were steady now. That surprised her. Maybe the fear had reached its limit and become something else. Maybe there was only so long a person could be dismissed before they began to feel less like a wounded daughter and more like evidence with a pulse. Roman leaned forward slightly. "Millie," she looked at him, "show me what your father built." Outside, the rain kept falling over the city Gerald Holloway thought he owned. Inside, Millie opened the first folder, spread the papers across Roman Vitale's polished table, and began with the money. Millie began with the money because money was the only witness in her family that had never learned how to lie for Gerald Holloway. People lied. People softened stories. People forgot dates when a paycheck told them to. People smiled in photographs beside men they feared and called it loyalty. But money moved where it moved. It left numbers behind. It passed through banks, contracts, invoices, approvals, signatures, and quiet little mistakes made by men who believed they were too important to be checked by anyone they had already decided was invisible. Millie spread the first set of papers across Roman Vitale's polished table, with her broken shoe near one elbow, her muddy knee tucked under the chair, and the strange feeling that, for the first time in months, she was speaking to someone who did not need her to shrink before he would listen. Roman did not interrupt her. That was the first thing she noticed after the danger of him, after the black coat and the silent men, and the fact that his private building had elevator security better than most banks. He did not nod in that fake, patient way men used when they were waiting for their turn to explain her own work back to her. He did not glance at his phone. He did not sigh when she paused to arrange the documents in order. He watched the papers, and then watched her face, as if both carried equal value. That unsettled Millie more than if he had pointed a gun at the table. She knew what to do with threats. She had grown up at dinner with them. Respect was harder. Respect made a person careless if she was hungry enough for it. "This is the first contract," she said, tapping a city infrastructure approval from 9 months earlier. "Drainage repair near the East Harbor underpass. Small job, messy location, good place to hide inflated costs because nobody wants to crawl under old concrete and argue over water damage." Holloway bid at $4.2 million, which was already too high, but not high enough to cause attention. Then 2 emergency amendments were added after approval. One for environmental delay, one for security coordination. Roman glanced at the page. Security coordination. There was no security issue. His eyes moved to hers. Millie gave him a thin smile. "There was, however, a very helpful rumor that one of your people had been seen near the site arguing with a city inspector." "One of my people?" "That is what the note says. No name, no badge number, no report. Just enough smoke to make the added cost look reasonable." Roman's jaw did not tighten. His fingers did not curl. He only became more still. Millie wondered if anyone else would have missed that. The way his anger did not rise like fire. It sank like a stone. "No one from my organization went near that site," he said. "I know." That made him look up. She shrugged, though her shoulders felt stiff. "You had nothing to gain there. That project was a boring drainage repair with bad margins and too much public visibility. Your enemies might be stupid enough to use it." "You aren't." One of Roman's men, standing near the door, looked at her with new interest. Roman's mouth curved just slightly. You say that with confidence. I find stupidity leaves patterns. So does competence. And which one does your father leave? Millie looked back at the papers. Entitlement. That's different. Stupid men make messy mistakes because they don't understand the system. Competent men make small mistakes because they think they are the system. Roman sat back, his eyes dark and unreadable. Continue. So she did. She showed him the first inflated invoice, then the second, then the routing schedule where money left Holloway Construction and appeared in Ridgeline Development 4 days later under the label subcontractor deposit. She showed him how Ridgeline paid a consulting firm owned by Sandra Feltz's cousin. She showed him how that firm donated to a city council campaign. She showed him 3 more contracts with the same shape, wearing different clothes: waterfront storage, emergency paving, demolition review. Each one touched a location close enough to Roman's territory to suggest his shadow without proving his hand. Each one had a convenient rumor attached: a nervous inspector, a delayed permit, a private security expense, a labor concern. Nothing big enough to make headlines, everything small enough to build a wall. Roman listened through all of it. His coffee went cold beside him. Millie drank hers too fast and burned her tongue because she was nervous and refused to admit it. When she finished the first folder, he reached for one page, then stopped before touching it. May I? The question was quiet. Millie blinked. It was paper. Evidence. Not her body, not her home, not her past. And still the question moved through her like a careful hand stopping before a bruise. She pushed the page toward him. Yes. Roman picked it up. Sandra Feltz. She's more important than she looks. Most dangerous people are. Gerald thinks he discovered her. I think she studied him and learned where to stand. Roman's eyes moved over the page. His mistress. Business partner first. Mistress second. Or maybe both the whole time. I don't know, and honestly, the romantic timeline of my father's corruption is not where I enjoy spending emotional energy. Roman almost smiled again. Understandable. She created the first Ridgeline account structure. Gerald approved the contracts. Caleb signed off on progress certifications he probably didn't read. Sandra moved the money after that. Caleb is involved. Millie's answer came too quickly. Yes. Roman watched her. She hated him a little for making silence feel like a question. Yes, she repeated, slower this time. I don't know how much he understands. Caleb has a gift for being useful and clueless at the same time, but his signature is on enough files that innocence would require a level of stupidity even I am not emotionally prepared to grant him. You want him innocent? Millie looked up sharply. No. Roman said nothing. The lie hung between them, unattractive and obvious. Millie rubbed a hand over her face, then remembered her makeup had probably already surrendered to the rain. I want him less guilty than Gerald. That's not the same thing. Roman's voice was softer when he asked, why? Because he is my brother. The words came out small. She wished they had not. She wished she could speak about Caleb like he was only a smug man in an expensive suit. Some days he was. Most days now. But memory was cruel. Memory kept useless evidence. Caleb at 8 years old hiding cookies in his pockets for her after Gerald said she had eaten enough cake at a birthday party. Caleb at 13 telling a boy on the school bus to shut up when he laughed at Millie's arms in a sleeveless dress. Caleb before their father's praise turned him shiny and mean. Caleb before he learned that being Gerald's son paid better than being Millie's brother. Roman seemed to understand something of that because he did not press. He only set the page down. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Your brother has left your apartment. Millie's spine straightened. Did he take anything? Roman tapped the screen once and read the message. He attempted to enter. Your lock held. He spoke to someone on the phone, became angry, kicked the door once and left. A hot little spark of satisfaction cut through the fear. I paid extra for that lock. You chose well. I usually do. Yes, Roman said, as if it was not flattery but fact. Millie looked away first again. It was becoming annoying. Roman sent another message, then placed the phone face down. We need full copies of these records. No. His eyes returned to her. No, she said again, already hearing the argument forming in the air. Not because I'm trying to be difficult, though that is one of my few remaining joys, because you and I are not a team yet. We are two people with overlapping enemies and very different methods. Roman leaned back. What do you need before we become a team? The directness almost made her laugh. That is not how normal people talk. I am not normal people. Tragic, but fair. What do you need? Millie tapped her fingers against the folder. Her nails were chipped. She noticed that suddenly and curled them inward, then became angry at herself for caring about chipped nail polish while sitting across from a mafia boss discussing federal crimes. I need proof that giving you information won't turn me into evidence disposal when this is over. My word. She stared at him. He accepted the look. Not enough. Not even close. What would be enough? A written agreement. Roman's brows lifted slightly. Millie lifted her chin. Don't look at me like that. You have lawyers. I've seen 6 different corporate entities tied to your real estate holdings, and that was from public databases during one very stressful lunch break. You understand contracts. My world does not always use paper. My world uses paper to hide knives. I prefer knowing where the edges are. He studied her for a moment, then looked to the man by the door. Call DeMarco. The man nodded and left. Millie blinked. That worked? You asked for paper. You asked for paper. I expected at least 3 rounds of brooding. I can brood while we wait. Despite herself, she laughed. A small sound, but real. Roman looked pleased again, and this time he did not hide it fast enough. That was dangerous. Not his amusement. Hers. She had come into this building with a broken shoe, a stack of criminal records, and enough fear to power a small city. She had not expected to enjoy him. Enjoying a dangerous man was always where stories became stupid. Millie had spent her whole life trying very hard not to become a cautionary tale men told after they ignored her. The conference room door opened before the thought could grow worse. A man in his 60s entered with silver hair, square glasses, and the calm despair of an attorney who had served violent clients long enough to develop spiritual arthritis. He carried a tablet and a leather folio. Mr. Vitale, he said. Then his eyes moved to Millie, the papers, the muddy knee, the broken shoe, and the coffee cup in her hand. He did not react. Miss Holloway. Millie narrowed her eyes. Do all of you know my name? The lawyer glanced at Roman. I was briefed in the elevator. Disturbing efficiency again. My condolences. Roman gestured to the chair beside Millie, but the lawyer did not sit until she gave the smallest nod. Another point, she thought bitterly. They were collecting them now. Little manners, little restraints, little pieces of safety offered carefully enough that she might start trusting the shape before checking the foundation. Miss Holloway wants a written agreement, Roman said. DeMarco opened his folio. Regarding what terms? Millie sat straighter. This, at least, she understood. Rooms were easier when they became negotiations. Information sharing. Protection against coercive use of documents. No unauthorized release of anything that identifies me as the source, without my approval, unless immediate physical danger requires it. No access to my personal devices. No contact with federal or local law enforcement under my name unless I initiate it or approve it. No surveillance inside my home. No pressure to live or stay anywhere controlled by Mr. Vitale. No financial dependency. No gifts that create obligation. No touching my evidence without permission. No intimidating my professional contacts. No killing anyone because it makes the paperwork easier. DeMarco's pen paused for the first time. Roman looked at her for a long second. Millie looked back. Was that last one unclear? No, Roman said. It was very clear. Good. DeMarco adjusted his glasses. The language around killing may be difficult to phrase in a civil agreement. I believe in you. The lawyer's mouth twitched. Roman's did too. Roman leaned forward, forearms resting lightly on the table. And what do you offer? Millie met his eyes. My analysis. My documents. In stages. My knowledge of Gerald's habits. Caleb's passwords if he has not changed them, which he probably has not, because he thinks cybersecurity is for people with weak handshakes. Sandra's connection map. City contract trails. And if we reach that point, testimony. Roman's expression changed at the last word. You understand what testimony would mean. I understand lots of things no one enjoys explaining to me. It would put you in open war with your father. Millie gave a quiet laugh. Roman, I have been in open war with my father since I was old enough to say he was wrong. He just kept calling it family. The room went silent after that. Not pity. She would have hated pity. Just silence. Heavy, respectful, uncomfortable silence. The kind people gave truth when it walked in without dressing nicely. DeMarco cleared his throat. I can draft the agreement. Add one more thing, Millie said. The lawyer looked at her. If I ask to stop, we stop. No following me, no cornering me, no deciding I'm too emotional to know what's best for myself. Roman's gaze held hers. Something unreadable passed across his face. Agreed. You said that fast. It is not difficult. Millie thought of Gerald telling her she was confused, Caleb telling her she was dramatic. Every man who had turned her refusal into a symptom instead of a decision. She looked down at the table. For some people it is. Roman's voice lowered. I am not some people. No, you're worse in other exciting ways. DeMarco made a sound that might have been a cough. Roman's eyes warmed. The air in the room shifted again, not lighter exactly, but less cold. While DeMarco drafted, Millie kept working. That became the rhythm of the next hour. Roman asked questions. Millie answered some and refused others. She showed him how the shell companies layered over each other. She explained why Sandra's consulting invoices mattered. She pointed out 3 dates that lined up with city approvals and 1 private dinner at the Arcadia Club. Roman provided names she did not have. A union fixer, a retired detective, a shipping broker, a councilman's aide with a gambling problem. Millie wrote them down in her notebook with quick, ugly handwriting. Each name opened another small door. Behind every door, something moved. At one point, Roman called in a man named Leo, who looked like he could bend a steel pipe into a polite apology. Leo placed a laptop on the table and pulled up property records, news archives, and business filings faster than Millie expected from someone whose hands looked built for breaking locks. She told him so. Leo blinked, then looked at Roman as if asking whether he was allowed to respond. You may speak, Roman said dryly. Leo looked back at Millie. I'm very good with databases. Wonderful. I apologize for judging you by your murder shoulders. Leo stared at her. Roman closed his eyes briefly. Then Leo laughed, one rough bark of sound that seemed to surprise him as much as everyone else. Millie smiled into her coffee. Roman watched that smile for half a second too long. By early evening, the rain had turned the windows black and silver. The city lights came on below them, glowing through the wet glass like coins under water. Millie's phone buzzed 6 times, Gerald twice, Caleb once, her mother once, an unknown number twice. She did not answer. Each call made her stomach tighten, but less than before. The dread had shape now. Shape could be studied. Studied things could be beaten. The seventh call came from someone she did answer. Her friend Tasha. Millie picked up immediately and took it off speaker. "Hey!" "Do not hey me," Tasha said. "Why did your brother just call asking whether you left a package with me?" Millie closed her eyes. "Did you say yes?" "I said which brother, even though you only have one, because I enjoy making confident men repeat themselves." Millie almost sagged with relief. "I love you. I know. Are you in trouble?" Millie glanced at Roman. He had turned his attention to Leo's laptop, giving her the illusion of privacy in a room he controlled. "Yes. How much trouble?" "Family-sized." Tasha was quiet for one beat. "Do I need to move the thing?" The thing was a flash drive in a sealed envelope taped behind the bottom drawer of Tasha's old filing cabinet. It contained the raw payment logs, enough to confirm Millie's accusations, but not enough to expose the full network. Millie had given it to Tasha with a joke about tax season and never explained. Tasha had not asked. That was friendship, not blind trust, but chosen trust. "Not yet," Millie said, "but if anyone asks, you never had it. Already forgot what we're discussing. If I text you the word marmalade, take it to Joel Ashworth." "Federal Joel?" Millie's eyes flicked toward Roman. His attention stayed politely elsewhere. Too politely. He heard every word. Of course he did. "Yes." Tasha exhaled. "Millie, I know. Are you safe?" The word made Millie look at Roman again. Safe was complicated. She was in a building owned by a criminal. Her father wanted her evidence. Her brother had tried to enter her apartment. A citywide corruption trail was spread across a mafia boss's table. And yet Roman had not touched her papers without permission, had called a lawyer when she asked, and had placed her chair near the door. "For the moment," she said. "That is not my favorite answer. It is the honest one. Are you with someone?" Millie hesitated. Roman looked up then. "Yes," she said. "Someone useful or someone pretty?" Millie rubbed her forehead. "Those are not the categories. They are always the categories." Roman's eyebrow lifted. Millie turned slightly away. "Useful," Tasha hummed. "Shame." "I'm hanging up. Text me when you get home." "I will. You better." "And Millie." "Yeah? If Gerald is finally scared enough to send Caleb after you, then you must have found something real." Millie looked at the papers. Her voice softened. "I did." "Then don't let them make you feel crazy." The words reached into her chest and pressed gently against a place that had been hurting for years. "I won't," Millie said. She ended the call and stared at the dark phone screen for a moment. Roman did not pretend he had not listened. "Joel Ashworth." Millie looked at him. "Don't." "She is a federal financial crimes investigator." "I said don't. I was not criticizing. I don't care. Her name is not yours to use yet." Roman inclined his head. "Understood." That easy agreement again. Millie hated how much each one mattered. DeMarco returned with a draft agreement 30 minutes later. Millie read every line. Twice. Roman did not rush her. Leo left and came back with food nobody had asked for, but everyone apparently needed. Sandwiches, soup, fruit, coffee, and a slice of chocolate cake placed directly in front of Millie. She stared at it. Roman noticed. "Is something wrong?" "No. You look offended by cake. I'm trying to decide whether this is hospitality or strategy. It can be both." She looked at him sharply. He held her gaze, then said, "You have not eaten." It should have irritated her. It did irritate her, but not in the usual way. Usually when people noticed Millie's food, it came with judgment hiding behind concern. "Are you sure you want that? Should you be eating so late? I'm being good today. Just a salad for me." The world had 1,000 tiny ways to make hunger sound like a flaw, especially when it belonged to a woman whose body refused to apologize for taking up space. Roman said none of that. He did not look at the cake like a test. He looked at it like food. Millie picked up the fork. For the record, if this cake is poisoned, I will be furious and disappointed. It is not poisoned. That's exactly what someone would say about poisoned cake. He pushed his own untouched plate toward her slightly. Taste mine first. She paused. It was a strange gesture, casual and old world and oddly intimate. Not dramatic, not I will die for you. Just take mine if you are unsure. Millie looked at the plate, then at him. You don't seem like a cake person. I am full of mysteries. You're full of something. Leo made another coughing sound from near the window. Roman's mouth curved. Eat, Millie. This time, the words did not feel like an order. Maybe because his voice had softened around her name. Maybe because the cake looked excellent. Maybe because she was tired of making every small kindness prove it was not a trap before letting herself have it. She took a bite. It was rich and dark and unfairly good. Her eyes closed for half a second before she could stop them. When she opened them, Roman was watching her with an expression she did not understand. Not mockery. Not desire exactly, though something warm moved beneath it. More like wonder, carefully restrained because he knew wonder could become pressure if held too close. Millie pointed her fork at him. Do not make this weird. I said nothing. You were thinking loudly. I will think more quietly. DeMarco looked like he wanted to retire immediately. After the agreement was signed, Millie finally allowed Roman's team to scan the first folder. She watched every page go through the scanner. She kept the originals. Roman did not argue. By the time the digital copies were encrypted, the city outside had gone fully dark. Millie should have gone home. She said it once. I should go home. Roman looked at her from across the table. Your brother may return. I know. Your father may send someone else. I know. You can stay here. No. He nodded once. Then I will have a car take you somewhere of your choosing. Not my apartment. Good. She hated that he looked relieved. I have a hotel membership point situation, she said. One of the few joys of consulting. There's a place 3 miles from here. I'll stay there tonight. I'll arrange security. Roman. If you say no, I will not. She looked at him. Really looked. The dangerous thing was not that he offered. The dangerous thing was that he made refusal possible. Millie had not realized how tired she was of defending the door before she could even decide whether she wanted help on the other side. Outside, she said, not in the room, not at the front desk asking questions, not hovering, outside, invisible. Done. And I pay for my own room. His eyes moved over her face. He wanted to argue. She could see it, not because he thought she was incapable, but because paying was easier for him than watching her insist on standing alone. Still, he nodded. Fine. I mean it. I heard you. Men hear many things. Then they do what they were already planning. I will not pay for the room. Millie studied him with deep suspicion. Will one of your mysterious corporations buy the hotel before I check out? Leo turned toward the window. Roman smiled. No. Will the hotel suddenly comp my stay because of an anonymous loyalty upgrade? No. Will a basket of emotionally manipulative muffins arrive? Roman leaned back. I make no promises about muffins. She laughed again, tired and unwilling, and warmer than she wanted. The car that took her to the hotel was not the same one from the courthouse. Roman did not ride with her. That surprised her too. He walked her to the private garage elevator, stopped before the doors, and handed her back the black card she had placed on the table earlier without realizing it. Call if anything changes, he said. Everything has changed. Then call if it worsens. She took the card. Their fingers almost brushed this time, but he pulled back just enough. She noticed. Again. You're very careful. she said before she could stop herself. Roman's eyes held hers. With you, yes. The answer should have been smooth. It should have sounded like a line. From him, it sounded like a decision he had made before fully understanding why. Millie's throat tightened. She covered it with a joke because that was cheaper than vulnerability and easier to clean up. That's wise. I'm a legal hazard. I am aware. The elevator doors opened. She stepped in, then turned back. Roman remained where he was, hands at his sides, black shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms now, his expensive coat gone, his expression unreadable except for his eyes. His eyes gave away too much. Or maybe Millie was just getting reckless with what she allowed herself to see. Good night, Roman. Good night, Millie. The doors closed. The hotel was quiet, clean, and anonymous. Millie checked in using her own card while trying not to look for Roman's invisible security. That became impossible after she spotted one man reading a newspaper in the lobby, upside down. She almost smiled. Terrible spy. Good shoulders. She went upstairs, locked the door, wedged a chair under the handle because old fear had habits, and finally took off her torn stockings. Her knee was bruised. Her palm was scraped. Her hair had become a weather event. She sat on the edge of the bed in the soft yellow light and looked at herself in the dark television screen. For years, Millie had imagined the moment she finally turned against her father would feel clean, victorious. Like a song swelling in the background, while the small, underestimated daughter stepped into her power. Instead, she felt exhausted, afraid, a little hungry again, annoyingly. She felt guilty for not answering her mother's call. She felt stupid for worrying whether Caleb was panicking. She felt furious that guilt still knew the way in after everything. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gerald. Come home tomorrow morning. Alone. We can still keep this private. Millie stared at the words until they blurred. Private. That was Gerald's favorite room. Private was where he corrected people. Private was where he made threats sound like lessons. Private was where he turned daughters into problems and sons into witnesses. Another text appeared. Do not let outsiders turn you against your family. Millie laughed softly in the empty room. Outsiders. As if family had not been the first place she learned how lonely a room could be. She typed nothing back. Instead, she opened a secure app, took a photo of the messages, and saved them into the evidence file. Then she texted Tasha one word. Safe. A reply came almost instantly. Marmalade level safe or regular safe? Millie smiled, despite everything. Regular. Tasha sent back 3 knife emojis and a heart. Millie placed the phone beside her and lay back without getting under the blankets. She told herself she would rest for 10 minutes before showering. Instead, she fell asleep with Roman's black card on the nightstand and Gerald's threat glowing quietly in the dark. She woke at 3:17 in the morning to a sound outside her door. Not loud, not dramatic, just one soft click. Her eyes opened. For a second, she was a child again in the Holloway house, hearing Gerald's footsteps stop outside her bedroom after she had talked back at dinner. Then the hotel room returned, the chair under the handle, the drawn curtains, the city light leaking around the edges. Her phone beside her hand. Another sound. Not a knock. A card sliding into the electronic lock. Millie's body went cold before her mind caught up. She moved without turning on a light. Phone in one hand. Broken heel in the other, because apparently that was the weapon the universe had assigned her. She backed toward the far wall, her breath held tight behind her teeth. The lock flashed green. The handle pressed down. The chair caught. A pause. Then a low male voice outside muttered, "Move it." Millie opened Roman's contact and hit call. He answered before the first ring ended. Millie. "Someone is at my door," she whispered. The line changed. Not sound, atmosphere, bathroom, lock it if there is one, stay low. I have a shoe. Millie. Moving. She slipped into the bathroom and locked the door just as the hotel room door shoved harder against the chair. Wood scraped carpet. The sound was ugly and close. She crouched beside the tub, heart hammering so hard it seemed impossible the men outside could not hear it. Roman's voice remained low in her ear. "My men are coming up." There were men already. One at the elevator, one outside. They are not answering. That frightened her more than the door. A heavy thud hit the room door. The chair shifted. Millie gripped the phone. "Roman, I am here." The room door gave way with a crack. Men entered. Not many. 2, maybe 3. Shoes on carpet. One whispered something she could not catch. Another cursed softly when he saw the empty bed. "She's in the bathroom," someone said. Millie pressed herself tighter against the tub. Roman's voice turned deadly calm. "Do not open that door for anyone but me." Wasn't planning on hosting. The bathroom handle rattled. Millie stopped breathing. A man outside said, "Millie, open the door." She knew that voice. Not Caleb, not Gerald. Derek Voss, her father's private security director, former police, current parasite, a man who smiled with all his teeth and none of his eyes. He had driven Millie home from college once, after she had been photographed drunk at a party, and Gerald decided the real crime was public embarrassment. Derek had told her in the car that girls who wanted respect should not make themselves easy to discuss. Millie had vomited on his floor mats 15 minutes later and still considered it one of her better decisions. "Miss Holloway," Derek said, "your father is worried about you." Roman heard the voice through the phone. "Who is it?" "Derek," she whispered. "Gerald's security." The handle rattled again. "Open the door," Derek said. "We're not here to hurt you." Millie's laugh came out silently, painfully. Men always said that through locked doors. The first hit against the bathroom door made her flinch. The second cracked the frame. Then something happened in the hotel room. A short shout, a heavy impact, a body hitting furniture. Another man yelled. There was a sound like glass breaking, and then Roman's voice. Not through the phone this time, but outside the bathroom door. "Millie." Her eyes filled so quickly it embarrassed her. "Say something," he said. "I'm armed." "With what?" "A shoe." A pause. Then, softer, "Open the door." She did. Roman stood on the other side in a black coat over an untucked shirt, hair damp as if he had come through rain again, eyes so cold they did not look human until they found her face. Behind him, the hotel room was a disaster of overturned furniture and broken lamp glass. Leo had one man pinned face down near the bed. Another of Roman's men held Derek against the wall with an arm across his throat. Derek's nose was bleeding onto his expensive shirt. Roman looked at Millie's face, then her hands, then the broken shoe clutched like a dagger. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." His jaw tightened once. "Good." Derek tried to speak. Mr. Holloway only wanted... Roman turned his head. Derek stopped. Millie stepped out of the bathroom slowly. Her legs felt untrustworthy, but she made them work. She looked at Derek, at the hotel keycard on the floor, at the 2 unconscious men, at the broken chair. Fear still moved through her, but anger was rising under it now. Hot, bright, useful. Roman noticed and stepped aside, giving her a clear path. Not behind him, beside him. Derek swallowed when she came closer. Millie looked down at him. "My father sent you into my hotel room at 3 in the morning. He wanted to talk. Through a bathroom door. You were being unreasonable." There it was again, the old family weather. Millie crouched slightly, ignoring the sting in her knee. "Derek, I want you to listen carefully, because I know your entire personality is built around not listening to women unless they're on police recordings. You are going to tell Gerald that the next person he sends after me becomes part of the file." Derek's eyes flicked toward Roman. "You don't know what you're doing." Millie smiled. It was small and sharp, and did not feel borrowed from fear. "That sentence is getting boring." Roman looked at Leo. "Take them downstairs, quietly. Return them with a message." Leo nodded. Millie straightened. "No." Everyone looked at her. Roman's gaze settled on her face. "No? No message from you. Mine was enough." For 1 second, something dark crossed Roman's eyes. Not anger at her, something older, a reflex, a man used to ending threats by making them unforgettable. Then he nodded. "Your message," he said. Derek stared between them, confused by the exchange. Millie understood why. Men like Derek believed power always interrupted. They did not recognize restraint as power, because nobody had ever paid them for it. Leo dragged Derek toward the door. When the room finally emptied, the silence left behind felt enormous. Millie stood in the middle of the broken hotel room with bare feet, one torn stocking still hanging from her hand, and realized she was shaking. She turned away quickly. Roman saw anyway. "I'm fine," she said. "No." She laughed once, thin and sharp. "You know, you could pretend." "I could. But you won't." "No." She pressed both hands over her face. The shoe dropped to the carpet. "I hate this." Roman stayed where he was. Being afraid. Being seen being afraid. His voice changed. "Millie." "No. Don't say my name like that. If you're gentle, I'll cry. And if I cry, I'll get angry. And then I'll say something rude about your coat. My coat can survive it. That did it. Not the rescue. Not the broken door. Not the danger. The stupid coat comment." A laugh broke out of her and turned into a sob before she could stop it. She covered her mouth. Roman did not move toward her. That almost made it worse. He stood 3 feet away, close enough to help if she asked, far enough to let the feeling belong to her. She cried quietly, angrily, hating every tear, wiping them away as fast as they came. Roman watched the floor near her feet, instead of staring at her face. Somehow that made her cry harder. After a minute, she said, "This is humiliating." "No, it is. It is human. Worse." His mouth moved faintly, but his eyes remained serious. Millie took a shaky breath and looked around the room. "I'm going to get charged for this." "No." She pointed at him. "We signed an agreement about no gifts. This is property damage caused during an attempted abduction." "Fine. Legal distinction accepted. You cannot stay here. No kidding. You can choose another hotel." She looked at the broken door, the overturned chair, the hallway beyond it where Derek had come with a key. A hotel was not safety if Gerald could buy the door open. Roman knew the moment she understood. "You can stay in one of my buildings," he said. "Temporary. Separate floor. Private lock. Your own access. You pay nothing because it is a safe location, not a gift." "That sounds like an argument DeMarco taught you. It is one I prepared while driving here." "Of course you did. You may also choose a federal office, a police station, your friend's home, or somewhere else. I will arrange transport and security to any of them." Millie looked at him. There he was again, opening doors instead of closing them. Her chest hurt with exhaustion, with fear, with the old ache of having to choose safety in a world that always tried to charge interest on it. "I don't want to bring this to Tasha's door," she said softly. "No. And the police are not safe if Gerald has local officials. No. And Joelle isn't ready. Not yet. I need more before I hand everything over." Roman waited. Millie closed her eyes. "I hate that your option makes sense." "I know. When she opened her eyes, he was still watching her like her choice mattered more than his preference. That was the thing that finally made her decide. "One night," she said. "One night. My own lock. Yes. No guards inside. Yes. No surprise muffins." His expression softened. "I will warn the kitchen." She almost smiled. Roman turned away first, giving her privacy to gather her things from the ruined room. She packed quickly. Laptop, phone charger, evidence folders, raincoat, one good shoe, one broken one, the black card. She put everything in her bag with hands that had mostly stopped shaking. Downstairs, the lobby was empty except for a very pale night manager and Roman's upside-down newspaper man, who now had a split lip and looked deeply ashamed of his performance. Millie wanted to make a joke, but decided he had suffered enough. Roman's car waited outside in the rain. This time, when he opened the door, Millie did not argue. She got in, placed the evidence bag between them, and watched the hotel lights disappear behind wet glass. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The city at night looked different from the back of Roman's car. Softer at the edges, more dangerous in the middle. Streetlights streaked across his face and vanished. Millie looked at his hands resting on his knees. There was a faint scrape across one knuckle. "You came yourself," she said. "Yes." "Why?" Roman looked at her. "Because you called." The answer was too simple. Millie swallowed. "That cannot be how this works." "How what works?" "This. You. Me. Whatever category of disaster we are currently building." He was quiet long enough that she thought he would not answer. Then he said, "When people call me, it is usually because they want something done to someone else. You called because you needed a door kept closed." Millie's throat tightened again, but this time she did not cry. "I didn't know who else to call," she admitted. Roman turned his head toward the window. "I am sorry for that." It was not the answer she expected. She looked at him. He did not explain. He did not make her gratitude into something he could hold. He only sat beside her in the dark, while the rain traced silver lines down the glass, and for one strange, quiet moment, Millie did not feel like too much. Not too loud, not too sharp, not too big, not too angry, not too difficult. She felt like a woman who had been chased through the night and had still managed to keep the files. The safe location was not a mansion. That surprised her. It was a private apartment on the 26th floor of an old stone building near the river, with guarded elevators, thick doors, and windows that looked over black water. The living room was warm, simple, and almost empty. A sofa, a desk, a small kitchen, a bedroom down a short hall. No personal photographs. No decoration except a bowl of oranges on the counter and a bookshelf filled with old crime novels, financial law books, and one very battered cookbook. Millie stopped in front of the shelf. "This apartment has confusing hobbies. It belongs to me." "That explains less than you think." Roman placed a key card on the counter, then a physical key beside it. "Both are yours for the night. No one enters unless you allow it. Not even you? Especially not me." She looked at him. He held her gaze. The room felt too quiet suddenly, not empty, waiting. Roman stepped back toward the door. "There are clothes in the bedroom closet, new, various sizes. If none suit, I'll send for others." Millie's guard rose immediately. "You keep women's clothes in safe apartments?" "I keep men's and women's clothes in safe apartments. People rarely flee danger with luggage." That was reasonable, annoyingly reasonable. "And food?" she asked, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Yes." "No cake?" "There may be cake." Roman. "The kitchen acts independently." She shook her head, but she smiled this time. He saw it. Of course he saw it. For a moment, neither of them moved. The danger had slowed, and that made the softer things louder. His wet hair, Her bare feet on the polished floor, the scrape on his knuckle, the way his eyes kept returning to her face as if confirming she was still there. Millie cleared her throat. "Thank you." Roman's expression went still. Not cold this time. "Careful. You do not owe me for basic safety," he said. She looked down. "People keep ledgers. I know. You probably keep better ones than most." "Yes." That made her laugh softly. Roman opened the door, then paused. "Millie." She looked up. "Tomorrow, your father will change tactics. I know. He will not only threaten, he will charm. He will call you family. He will send your mother. He will use Caleb. He will offer you something you wanted 5 years ago and punish you for still wanting it." The accuracy hit too close. Millie's mouth went dry. "You sound familiar with the method." Roman's eyes darkened. Powerful men are not original. No, they weren't. That was the terrible joke of it. Every empire thought it was unique, but the rooms all sounded the same once the doors closed. "What do I do?" she asked before pride could stop her. Roman did not smile, did not look pleased she had asked. "You decide what you want before he tells you what you are allowed to have." Millie held on to that sentence, quietly, carefully. Then Roman left. The lock clicked behind him. Millie stood alone in the apartment, listening to the river wind press against the windows. She should have felt trapped. She did not. That scared her in a different way. She checked the door, then the bedroom, then the closet. There were clothes there, just as he had said. Simple things. Sweaters, jeans, soft shirts, sleepwear. Nothing lace, nothing presumptuous, nothing chosen to make her feel like a fantasy or a burden. Several sizes, including hers, not squeezed into the back as an afterthought, just there. Millie sat on the edge of the bed and stared at them for a long time. Then she showered, changed into a soft gray shirt and loose pants, ate an orange standing over the kitchen sink, and opened her laptop at the desk. Sleep was impossible now. Fear had burned off into focus. She worked until dawn. By 6:30, she had built a cleaner map of Gerald's operation than she had ever managed alone. Roman's names filled missing gaps. Leo's property records confirmed Sandra's shell paths. Derek's attempted hotel entry gave her something else too. Proof of intimidation, not financial, but behavioral, a pattern, a story investigators could understand. At 7:14, her phone rang. Her mother. Millie stared at the name for 4 full rings before answering. "Mum." There was a tiny breath on the other end. "Millie, sweetheart." Sweetheart. Soft, careful, already tired. Millie closed her eyes. Her mother's voice trembled. "Your father is very upset. I'm sure. Caleb said you're with dangerous people." Millie looked toward the window, where morning light was beginning to turn the river gray. "Caleb says many things. Please don't be sharp right now." There it was, not cruel, worse, familiar. Millie sat back. "Why did you call?" A pause. "Your father wants you at the Arcadia Club tonight." Millie went still. The promotion gala, Caleb's grand ceremony, Gerald's polished room, Sandra's pearls. Investors, city officials, contractors, donors, reporters. The whole stage Gerald had built to show the city that Caleb was the future of Holloway construction. "He says," her mother continued softly, "that if you come and return whatever files you took, he will forget all of this." Millie stared at her laptop screen, at the map of crimes glowing quietly there. Forget. He wants the family together tonight. No, he wants control of the room. Millie. No, Mom. Don't soften it. Not today. Her mother's breath shook. "You don't know what he's like when you push him this far." Millie's voice became very quiet. "Yes, I do." Silence. That was the saddest answer in the world, because neither of them could deny it. Her mother whispered, He said if you don't come, he will make it public that you stole company documents and tried to extort him. Millie laughed once. Not because it was funny, because Gerald always believed a threat sounded better in someone else's mouth. "Tell him I'll be there," she said. Her mother went still. "You will?" "Yes." "With the files?" Millie looked at the evidence map, then at Roman's black card on the desk. Then at her own reflection in the window, tired, soft-bodied, sharp-eyed, and done being background noise. "With everything he deserves," Millie said. She ended the call before her mother could ask what that meant. For a moment, the apartment was silent. Then Roman's voice came from the open doorway behind her. "You are going to the gala." Millie turned. He stood just outside the apartment, not over the threshold, one hand resting lightly against the doorframe. He was dressed for the day in a black suit and no tie, hair still damp from a shower, face unreadable except for the faint concern in his eyes. Millie looked from him to the open door. "I thought no one enters unless I allow it." I knocked. "I did not hear you. You left the door unlatched after checking the hall at 5:42. She stared at him. His mouth tightened. "My guard told me. I did not watch." That clarification barely helped. "I know." She stood and walked to the door. Roman stepped back at once, giving her the threshold. That helped more. "Yes," she said. "I'm going to the gala. Gerald expects you to come alone." "I know." "He expects you to bring the files." "I'll bring enough." "He expects to break you in a room full of people." Millie smiled, and it did not feel soft. Then he should have checked the math first. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Something like pride moved across his face before he buried it under strategy. "You will need backup," he said. Millie leaned against the doorframe, exhausted and suddenly awake in every dangerous part of herself. "No," she said. "I'll need a dress." Roman blinked once. Millie's smile widened. "A red one," she added. "Something my father will hate before I even open my mouth." And for the first time since the night had broken open around them, Roman Vitale laughed. The red dress arrived in a black garment bag at 11:23 that morning, carried by a woman named Elise, who did not ask why Millie Holloway was hiding in one of Roman Vitale's private apartments, with a laptop full of financial crimes, a bruised knee, and the emotional stability of a coffee cup left too close to the edge of a desk. Elise only swept into the room with silver hair pinned at the back of her head, a measuring tape around her neck, and the brisk calm of someone who had dressed brides, widows, mistresses, politicians, and probably one or two women hiding from international warrants. She took one look at Millie, one look at Roman standing near the door with his arms folded, and said, "You want the room to regret underestimating her before she speaks." Roman looked at Millie. Millie looked at Elise. Then Millie said, "I like her." Elise smiled without showing teeth. Most clever women do. Roman did not help choose the dress. Millie made that clear within the first 30 seconds, and he accepted it with the grave seriousness of a man being handed battlefield instructions. He left the apartment after asking once whether she needed anything, and when Millie said privacy, he gave it to her. No pause, no wounded pride, no little flicker of control trying to disguise itself as concern. Just a nod, a look that stayed too long on her face and not long enough to become pressure, and then the door closing softly behind him. Millie stood in the quiet after he left, and hated how much that simple obedience reached into her. Powerful men had always made their presence feel like weather. Roman was the first one who made his absence feel intentional. Elise unzipped the garment bag. The dress was red, but not bright in a childish way. It was deep and warm and dangerous, the color of wine under candlelight, the color of a warning nobody could later claim they had not seen. It had a soft neckline, sleeves that fell off the shoulder without slipping, and a waist cut to honor her shape instead of punish it. Millie stared at it for longer than she meant to. She had worn formal dresses before, of course. Holloway daughters were expected to appear at charity dinners and construction galas and awards breakfasts where men in navy suits spoke about public service while billing taxpayers for private sins. But those dresses had usually been chosen to make her acceptable. Dark colors, careful lines, things that concealed, reduced, apologized. Dresses designed by people who believed the best thing a fat woman could do in a wealthy room was become less visible. This dress did not apologize. It looked like it had been made for a woman who intended to be noticed and had already forgiven herself for enjoying it. Millie crossed her arms. That seems aggressive. Elise lifted the dress from the bag. Good. I said my father should hate it, not suffer a medical event. We can aim for both, Millie laughed, and for a moment the fear loosened its grip. Then Elise turned serious in that quiet way older women sometimes did when they had spent enough years watching younger women pretend not to hurt. This dress will not make you brave, she said. You are already brave. It will only make the room understand that you know it. Millie looked away fast, pretending interest in the window. The river was gray under the morning light. Roman's building stood somewhere beyond the glass, invisible from this angle, but present in every practical detail. Security at the elevator, a burner phone on the counter, a car waiting below if she asked for it, a lawyer 3 floors down preparing copies of the agreement, Leo building out a map of Gerald's network with the enthusiasm of a man finally given permission to turn databases into weapons. All of that should have made her feel surrounded. Instead, the sentence in her head remained stubborn and clear. I am choosing this. Not Gerald, not Roman, not Caleb, not fear. Her. The fitting took 2 hours. Elise pinned, adjusted, frowned, muttered about tailors who misunderstood hips, and then fixed the problem herself with terrifying little scissors. Millie stood in front of the mirror while the dress slowly became hers. Her body did not become smaller. That was the miracle. It did not become hidden, corrected, or smoothed into someone else's comfort. It remained hers. Broad hips, soft arms, full stomach, strong legs beneath expensive fabric. A body that had carried her through every room that told her she did not belong there, and every day she entered anyway. By the time Elise finished, Millie hardly recognized the woman looking back at her. Not because she looked different, because she looked present. At 3 in the afternoon, Roman returned. He knocked first. Millie stood near the window, fully dressed except for her shoes, hair pinned loosely, documents organized inside a slim red leather portfolio Elise had found with the dress, like she had been waiting all her life to accessorize an indictment. Come in, Millie said. Roman opened the door and stopped. That was all. He did not whistle, did not compliment her like a man tossing coins toward a fountain, did not let his eyes roam as if her body were something he had earned by helping her survive the night. He simply stopped, one hand still on the door, and the silence around him changed. His face remained controlled, but his eyes betrayed him completely. Millie lifted one eyebrow, because if she did not make a joke immediately, she might become foolish. Careful. You look almost afraid. Roman stepped inside and closed the door behind him. I am. That stole the joke from her mouth. He walked no closer than the edge of the rug. He was dressed for the gala, in a black suit, white shirt, no tie, elegance sharpened into something close to threat. He looked like exactly what the city whispered he was. But his voice when he spoke to her was soft. Not of you, he said, for the men who will not understand what they are looking at until it is too late. Heat rose to Millie's cheeks before she could stop it. She hated him for that. A little, maybe. That was dangerously smooth. It was honest. Worse. His mouth curved. Are you ready? Millie looked at the portfolio on the table, then at her laptop bag, then at the burner phone with Joel Ashworth's number, saved under a name Gerald would never guess. Joel had not received the full file yet, only the emergency packet, just enough to know that if Millie disappeared, the right woman would start opening doors. Tasha had the secondary drive. DeMarco had sealed copies. Roman had his own evidence now, records showing Gerald's people had used Vitale rumors as a smokescreen. Millie had made sure no single person held all of it. Not Roman, not Joel, not her. She trusted people in pieces because pieces were harder to steal whole. I'm ready, she said. Roman's eyes lowered briefly to the shoes Elise had placed beside the sofa. Red heels, sturdy and elegant, chosen by a woman who understood drama, should not require orthopedic sacrifice. Millie pointed at him. Do not comment. I was going to say they look practical. That is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. His expression changed, just slightly. The air warmed again. Millie turned away, before the moment grew teeth. We should go. The Arcadia Club rose from the oldest part of the city, like a monument, to men who believed history was just wealth, with better lighting. Marble steps, tall windows, gold doors, a private entrance for members who preferred not to see the people their companies displaced. Holloway Construction had hosted events there for years. Caleb's promotion gala was exactly the kind of night Gerald loved. Expensive champagne, camera flashes, political smiles, and a room full of people who owed each other favors so old they had become family traditions. When Millie arrived, conversations did not stop at once. That only happened in movies and poorly managed scandals. Instead, the attention shifted in waves. First, the doorman recognized her and hesitated because her name was still Holloway, but her expression was not obedient. Then the guests near the entrance looked over, smiled automatically, and took too long to recognize the woman inside the red dress. Then recognition passed through the room like a match held to paper. Millie Holloway, Gerald's daughter, Caleb's sister, the funny one, the difficult one, the one who handled numbers, the one who should not have looked like she belonged to herself. Roman entered beside her, and then the room truly changed. A champagne glass stopped halfway to someone's mouth. A councilman turned pale beneath his tan. Two contractors near the bar suddenly remembered urgent business with their phones. Sandra Feltz, standing under a chandelier in pearls and pale green silk, froze for one perfect second before smoothing her face into curiosity. Caleb saw Roman first, then Millie, then the space between them, and his smile became something ugly, trying to stay handsome. Gerald stood near the stage, one hand on the shoulder of the mayor's deputy commissioner, laughing at something he did not find funny. He looked rich, calm, and fatherly in a charcoal tuxedo. The cameras loved him. The room loved him. Even the light seemed trained to flatter him. Then he saw Millie. His smile did not fall. Gerald was too polished for that. But his eyes changed. They went flat and cold, the way they had in his office when she said the word Ridgeline out loud. Millie's stomach tightened. Roman noticed without looking at her. Breathe, he said softly. I am breathing. You are plotting murder through shallow breathing. Multitasking. His mouth moved, but his gaze stayed on the room. Millie walked forward before fear could make the distance longer. The red dress moved around her legs like flame, pretending to be fabric. People turned. Some smiled too hard. Some looked away. Some stared at Roman. Some stared at her. Let them, she thought. Let them finally do the work. Caleb reached her first. Of course he did. Golden boys always rushed to stand between fathers and consequences. Millie, he said, wearing the kind of smile he used when photographers were nearby. You made it. I was invited. You were asked to come alone. And yet here I am, understanding the word no better than most of this family. His eyes flicked to Roman. This is a private event. Roman said nothing. That made Caleb more nervous than any threat would have. Millie smiled. Caleb, be polite. You're regional vice president now. Try not to embarrass the title before dessert. His jaw tightened. You think this is funny? No, I think it is mathematically satisfying. I don't know what Dad told you, but whatever little story you've built in your head, it ends tonight. Millie looked at him then, really looked. His expensive haircut, his smug mouth, the tiny panic under the polish. He did not understand all of it. She could see that now. Caleb had been told enough to obey, and praised enough not to ask questions, but not innocent. No, innocence required curiosity once the smoke began. Caleb had chosen comfort every time. You're right, she said softly. It does. Before he could answer, Gerald approached. The room bent around him. It always had. People stepped aside, without seeming to know they were doing it. Sandra watched from near the bar, one hand wrapped around her champagne flute, pearls shining at her throat. Millie's mother stood near a floral arrangement, with a pale expression, and both hands clasped around a tiny purse. She looked at Millie like a prayer she was afraid to say out loud. Millie, Gerald said warmly, too warmly, you look lovely. It was the first time he had said that in years, without adding some practical suggestion afterward. Millie smiled. Thank you. You look indicted. Caleb made a sharp sound. Gerald's face did not change. Roman's silence beside her became almost enjoyable. Gerald leaned closer, lowering his voice for family only, though half the room was trying not to listen. Not here. Funny. That is what you always say before doing ugly things in private. His eyes hardened. You are confused. No, Dad. I am overdressed and extremely well documented. Gerald's smile returned for the room. He placed one hand lightly around her upper arm. Roman moved. Not far, not dramatically, just one step. The kind of step that made every survival instinct in the room wake up. Gerald's hand stopped before it tightened. Millie looked down at his fingers on her arm, then back at his face. Let go. For 1 second, Gerald did not. It was a tiny rebellion. The father reminding the daughter that cameras or no cameras, blood or no blood, he still expected her body to obey his anger. Millie did not pull away. She did not flinch. She did not look at Roman. She held Gerald's eyes and said again, softer this time, let go. Gerald released her. The room had gone quiet enough now that the string quartet near the far wall sounded painfully cheerful. Caleb stepped in with a laugh too loud to be natural. Okay, everyone, family drama. You know how Millie gets when she feels left out. That old heat rose through her. Not shame this time. Recognition. This was the trick. Make her emotional, then accuse her of emotion. Make her react, then punish the reaction. Gerald had built rooms like this for years. Caleb had learned the layout. Millie turned toward him slowly. Left out? She asked. Caleb shrugged, glancing toward 2 investors he had been charming earlier. Come on, we all know what this is. Dad promotes me, you throw a fit, dig through files you don't understand, and now you show up with... His eyes flicked to Roman again. Whatever this is. Careful, Roman said. Only one word. Quiet. But the temperature dropped. Caleb swallowed, then recovered with that Holloway arrogance that had saved him from consequence until now. What? She had it coming. Somebody had to tell her she isn't the victim every time she doesn't get what she wants. The words hit the room. Millie felt them land. Felt the old version of herself want to fold around them. Had it coming. There it was again, dressed in public, wearing Caleb's mouth. It should have hurt worse than it did. Maybe it would later. Maybe at midnight she would remember the exact tone and cry in some kitchen while pretending she only needed water. But in that moment, beneath the chandelier, wearing a red dress her father hated, and standing beside a man who had not once asked her to be smaller, Millie felt something strange and clean open in her chest. The insult did not break her. It freed her. She laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just once, soft and almost amazed. Caleb looked thrown. Gerald went still. "You're right," Millie said. "I did have it coming." Her mother closed her eyes. Millie stepped toward the stage. Gerald's voice sharpened. "Millie," she kept walking. Roman did not stop her. He walked beside her, but half a step back, not leading, not hiding her. Beside enough for the room to understand she was not alone. Behind enough for the room to understand this was hers. When Millie reached the microphone set up for Caleb's promotion speech, the event coordinator rushed forward in a panic. Roman looked at him. The man immediately discovered a deep respect for artistic spontaneity and stepped away. Millie tapped the microphone once. The sound echoed through the ballroom. "Hi," she said. Her voice was steady. That surprised even her. Guests stared. Phones lifted cautiously. Gerald's smile had vanished now, replaced by the dead calm he wore when deciding how much damage a person deserved. Caleb stood below the stage, red-faced. Sandra had moved toward the side exit. Leo appeared near it before she reached the door and smiled pleasantly. Millie looked over the room. "For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Millie Holloway, Gerald's daughter, Caleb's sister. Occasional punchline, full-time cleanup crew." A nervous ripple moved through the crowd. Tonight is supposed to celebrate Caleb's promotion to Regional Vice President of Holloway Construction. Very exciting, very expensive, very well catered. And honestly, very brave, considering most of the contracts supporting this company currently have more fictional characters than a children's library. Someone gasped. Gerald started toward the stage, but Roman moved slightly into his path. He did not touch him. He did not need to. Millie opened the red portfolio. Her fingers did not shake. Over the past several months, I discovered that Holloway Construction has been laundering money through inflated city contracts and a shell company called Ridgeline Development LLC. Those funds moved through fake subcontractor payments, emergency amendments, consulting retainers, and political donations. Some of the money connects to Sandra Feltz, who I believe deserves credit for being much more than my father's secret girlfriend. Truly, Sandra, your filing structure was almost elegant until you got lazy in April. Sandra's face went white. Millie kept going. Certain projects were designed to look connected to Roman Vitale's organization, because blaming a feared man is easier than auditing a respected one. My father used rumors, locations, and fake security concerns to make his crimes look like someone else's shadow. The room moved then, not physically, emotionally, the first crack in the beautiful surface. The deputy commissioner whispered to someone. A councilman started sweating. One of Caleb's investors backed away from the Holloway banner as if fraud were contagious. Gerald found his voice. "This is absurd. My daughter is unwell." There it was. Millie looked at him. "I wondered how long it would take you to say that." He turned to the crowd, arms open, voice heavy with sorrow. "My family has been dealing with Millie's emotional instability privately for some time. She is brilliant, yes, but troubled, jealous, easily manipulated, and now, apparently, in the company of criminals." Roman's eyes went black. Millie lifted a hand without looking at him. He stopped. That mattered more than the room could understand. She took her phone from the portfolio and held it near the microphone. "This is my father yesterday morning." She pressed play. Gerald's voice filled the ballroom, smooth and unmistakable. "Do not start something you can't finish, Millie. The law is a room full of men. I know most of them. A terrible silence followed. Millie played the next clip. Gerald again, this time from a call she had recorded weeks before, after learning her state allowed it, when one party consented. If you speak, I will make every serious person in this city believe you are bitter, unstable, and desperate for attention. Gerald's face had gone grey. Millie looked out at the guests. That is what private family concern sounds like when no one else is in the room. Roman's gaze stayed on her, and for 1 second she felt the force of it. Not ownership, not rescue, witness, she continued. The full records are already with counsel. Copies are secured outside this building. An emergency packet has been prepared for federal investigators. If anything happens to me, or to any person assisting me, the rest goes out automatically. That was not entirely true, not automatically, but Tasha knew what marmalade meant, and Roman had men watching the doors, and DeMarco had sealed copies, and Joelle Ashworth was about to receive a call that would ruin a lot of expensive breakfasts. Close enough. Caleb climbed onto the first step of the stage. You stupid bitch. The room flinched. Millie turned to him. There was the brother she had been mourning, not the boy with cookie crumbs in his pockets, not the kid who once defended her on a bus. The man Gerald had finished making. You signed the February progress certification, Millie said quietly. Caleb froze. You signed the East Harbor Amendment. You signed the Ridgeline subcontractor approval. You signed the Mill Road equipment storage variance. Maybe Dad told you it was fine. Maybe you didn't read it. Maybe you thought being important meant never having to know what your name was doing on paper. But you signed. His face crumpled into anger, because shame had never learned a safer shape in him. You did this because you couldn't stand that he chose me. No, Millie said. I did this because he chose you to be useful and chose me to be silent. Caleb had no answer for that. Gerald moved fast then, faster than a man his age should have. He reached the edge of the stage and grabbed Millie's wrist, his face no longer fatherly, no longer polished, no longer public. That is enough, he hissed. Roman was there before anyone else breathed. He did not shout. He did not strike. He placed one hand around Gerald's wrist and removed it from Millie with terrifying gentleness. The room went dead still. Roman leaned close enough that only the first rows could hear him. Touch her again, and every room you have ever owned becomes too small to hide you. Gerald's eyes flashed with hate. You think you can threaten me in my own event? Roman's voice was almost soft. No, I think she already did. Millie stepped out from between them before Roman could become the story instead of her. Her wrist hurt where Gerald had grabbed her, but she did not rub it. She turned back to the microphone. I am leaving now, she said, not because I am afraid, because I'm done donating unpaid labor to men who confuse control with leadership. Enjoy the champagne. I'm told it pairs well with subpoenas. Then she walked off the stage. No one stopped her. Not Caleb, not Gerald, not the event coordinator who looked like he was mentally entering witness protection. Roman walked beside her through the ballroom. People moved aside, some because of him, some because of her. Millie could feel the difference. Outside, the night air hit her face cold and clean. She did not realize she was shaking until Roman's coat appeared in his hands. He did not put it on her. He held it out. She stared at it. It is cold, he said. I know. It is not a gift. It's probably worth more than my student loans. It is still cold. Millie laughed, and the laugh cracked halfway through. She took the coat. It was warm from him, heavy on her shoulders, smelling faintly of cedar, smoke and rain. Her phone felt like stone in her hand. Roman stood beside her on the steps. You do not have to make the call here. Yes, she said, I do. She called Joelle Ashworth. The federal investigator answered on the third ring, with a voice calm enough to make Millie feel like the world had at least one adult in it. Ms. Holloway? Millie looked back at the glowing windows of the Arcadia Club, at the silhouettes moving behind expensive glass, at the empire her father had built and the lie it had become. "I'm ready," Millie said. "I'll hand over everything." By sunrise, Holloway Construction was no longer a company. It was a crime scene with a logo. Federal agents entered Holloway Tower before most executives had finished their first coffee. Search warrants hit the accounting floor, Gerald's private office, Caleb's new regional suite, Sandra Feltz's condo, and 2 storage facilities tied to Ridgeline Development. City contracts were frozen before noon, accounts locked, laptops seized. Campaign committees suddenly discovered urgent reasons to revise public statements. News vans lined the street outside the tower, where Gerald had once given interviews about legacy and leadership. Millie watched the first reports from Roman's apartment, wrapped in a blanket, wearing the red dress unzipped halfway under one of his soft black sweaters because she had been too tired to change properly after meeting Joelle in a federal parking garage at 2 in the morning. Her heels sat abandoned by the door, her hair had fallen loose, her makeup was mostly gone. She looked nothing like the woman who had taken the stage. Roman stood in the kitchen, making coffee with the grave focus of a surgeon. He had not slept either. Neither of them had. After the gala, there had been statements, document transfers, quiet meetings, secure drives, 2 federal agents who looked at Roman like they wished jurisdiction were easier, and Joelle Ashworth, who shook Millie's hand like she knew exactly what courage cost when it had to be organized in folders. Now the city was waking up to Gerald Holloway's real face. On the television, a reporter said Sandra Feltz was cooperating. Millie snorted. "Of course she is." Roman handed her coffee. "You predicted she would." Sandra loved herself more than Gerald. That was her only redeeming quality. Useful quality. Deeply. The reporter continued. "Caleb Holloway, recently promoted to regional vice president, has not been charged at this hour, but sources confirm investigators are reviewing documents bearing his signature." Millie looked down at her coffee. Roman sat in the chair across from her, not beside her, still careful, always careful. "He may cooperate," he said. "He may cry first. Also useful." She smiled faintly, but it did not last. The exhaustion had found her now, not physical only, something deeper, the ache of a person who had spent years holding a door shut and had finally stepped away, only to realize how heavy it had been. Gerald was exposed. Caleb was panicking. Sandra was talking. The files were no longer only hers to carry. That should have felt like joy. Instead, Millie felt hollow. She set the cup down before it shook in her hands. "Why don't I feel better?" Roman did not answer quickly. He watched her with that quiet attention she had come to recognize, the kind that waited for the truth instead of dragging it out by force. "Because losing a prison is still losing a place you knew how to survive," he said. Her throat tightened. She hated him a little for being right. "I wanted to enjoy it," she whispered. "I wanted to be the kind of person who watched his company get raided and felt, I don't know, victorious, powerful, something sharp and cinematic. You were powerful. I'm sitting here in a stolen sweater, trying not to cry into Mafia coffee." The sweater was offered. "That is not the point." His mouth softened, but he did not smile. "You do not have to enjoy the wound because it is finally visible." That broke something open. Not loudly. Millie was tired of loud. Tears slid down her face before she could make a joke strong enough to stop them. She covered her eyes with one hand, furious and embarrassed, and relieved in a way that felt almost like grief. Roman stayed where he was. That made the tears easier, somehow. He did not rush to touch her, did not make comfort into performance, did not tell her Gerald had deserved it, though he had, did not tell her she was brave, though part of her wanted it, and part of her could not bear it. He only stayed, Coffee cooling, morning grey, the city shifting beneath them. After a while, Millie wiped her face with the sleeve of his sweater. Sorry. No, that sweater is definitely expensive. It has survived worse than me crying into it. Blood. She looked at him. He paused. That was not comforting. No, but it was very you. He almost smiled. Days passed in pieces. Gerald was arrested on a Thursday morning and released on bond by sunset, because rich men rarely experience consequences without office hours. But his face changed. Cameras caught it as he left the federal building. No fatherly smile, no civic hero warmth, just fury held together by legal advice. Caleb disappeared from public view after a video leaked of him shouting at reporters outside his apartment. Sandra gave enough information to make everyone hate her and need her at the same time. Contracts unraveled. Officials resigned. Holloway Construction's board announced an independent review with the mournful tone of men discovering mirrors for the first time. Millie did not return to Holloway Tower. Not once. She sent a formal resignation through DeMarco, which felt unnecessarily dramatic but deeply satisfying. She refused 3 calls from her mother before answering the 4th. The conversation was quiet, painful, and unfinished. Her mother cried. Millie did not comfort her the old way. She did not make herself smaller to make the silence easier. She only said, "I love you, but I'm not coming back into that house to make Dad's choices hurt less." Her mother did not know what to do with that. Neither did Millie. But after they hung up, she did not fall apart. That felt like progress. Tasha arrived 2 days later with the secondary drive, 3 grocery bags, and an expression that suggested she was prepared to fight Roman with a soup ladle if necessary. Roman opened the apartment door himself. Tasha looked him up and down and said, "You're taller than I wanted." Roman glanced at Millie. Millie smiled into her tea. "Everyone says that," he replied. Tasha stared at him for 3 seconds, then decided he was allowed to live for now. The investigation became large, then larger. Joelle called often. Millie answered every question she could, corrected timelines, explained contract layers, named missing documents, and translated Holloway arrogance into usable evidence. Roman provided his own records through attorneys, careful to give enough to prove Gerald's frame without handing the government anything unrelated and stupid. Millie respected that. She was not naive. Roman was still Roman. He had darkness in him, old and disciplined. He had enemies. He had blood somewhere in his history, and probably in rooms she would never enter. But with her, he remained what he had promised from the beginning. Not harmless, careful. One evening, 2 weeks after the gala, Millie found him on the apartment balcony, looking over the river. The air was cold enough to turn breath white. He wore no coat, because apparently criminals also liked catching pneumonia dramatically. She stepped outside with 2 mugs of coffee. You know, for a man with survival instincts, you make weird weather choices. He took 1 mug. I was thinking, brooding, strategic silence. Brooding with branding. His mouth curved. For a while, they looked at the river together. The city lights trembled on the water. Somewhere far below, traffic moved like blood through veins. I got an offer today, Millie said. Roman turned slightly. From whom? Joelle, unofficially, she said after the case moves further. There are consulting firms that specialize in forensic financial strategy, federal contractors, private monitors, people who look at ugly books and explain where the bodies are buried, financially speaking. She wants you to do what you already did. Yes, but with pay and fewer family dinners. That seems wise. Millie leaned against the balcony rail. I also got an email from one of Holloway's former clients. They want me to review their internal controls. Apparently I'm trustworthy now that I've publicly humiliated my father. You were trustworthy before. Yes, But now men in suits have external validation. Roman looked out over the water. What do you want? There it was again. The question nobody had asked her when it mattered. Millie thought about it, really thought. I want work where people know I'm the person in the room, she said. Not Caleb's sister, not Gerald's daughter. Not the funny fat girl at the end of the table who can fix the spreadsheet but shouldn't speak during strategy. I want my name on the invoice. I want my own clients. I want to choose when I help and when I leave. I want to stop translating disrespect into patience because I'm afraid of being called difficult. Roman listened. And, she added, looking at him sideways, I want the freedom to eat extremely good cake without feeling like someone is building a personality assessment around it. His gaze softened. That can be arranged. No surprise cake. Scheduled cake. That sounds less romantic than you think. I will improve. She laughed, and the sound warmed the cold air between them. Then silence returned, but it was not empty. It had become like the first quiet in Roman's car, except now it held memory. Rain, broken shoe, contract files, hotel door, red dress, the stage, Gerald's voice over the microphone, Roman's hand removing Gerald's from her wrist, every careful no, every accepted boundary. Every moment where he could have made himself the hero and chose instead to stand beside her while she became the author of her own escape. Millie looked at him. Roman. Yes? You know I'm not easy. His eyes moved to hers. Good. No, I mean it. I question everything. I don't trust gifts. I make jokes at funerals and during legal emergencies. I will probably accuse you of emotional tax fraud if you become too charming. I expect nothing less. I'm serious. So am I. She swallowed. The cold helped. It gave her a reason for the shiver. And you're dangerous. Yes. You scare people. Yes. You probably should scare me more than you do. His face changed. The softness faded, replaced by something solemn. I do not want you careless with me. I'm not. Good. I know what you are. No, he said quietly. You know parts. Some are worse than what I have shown you. The honesty hurt, but she preferred it. She would always prefer a hard truth to a soft lie. Gerald had taught her that by being made of soft lies. Millie nodded slowly. Then don't hide the parts that affect me. I won't. And don't decide my choices are yours to manage because you're scared. His eyes darkened, not with anger, with memory. Hotel door, Gerald's hand. Every powerful man original only in costume. I won't, he said. She believed he meant it. That did not mean he would never fail. Men were not contracts. Neither were women. But she had learned something in the past weeks. Trust was not the absence of danger. It was the presence of repair, the willingness to stop, to hear no, to return the page, to leave the room, to ask before stepping closer. Roman set his coffee down on the balcony ledge. May I touch you? The question moved through her more deeply than any compliment could have. Millie looked at his hand, then at his face. The most feared man in the city was standing in the cold asking permission, like it was not beneath him. Like wanting did not give him rights. Like power meant nothing if she did not choose. Yes, she said. He stepped closer slowly. His hand touched her cheek first, warm against the cold air, careful enough to make her heart ache. Millie leaned into it before she could overthink the motion. Roman's breath changed. Not much. Enough. He kissed her like a man who had all the patience in the world and none of the entitlement. Soft at first, a question, then deeper when she answered, one hand at her cheek, the other resting lightly at her waist, not gripping, not claiming, only there. Millie held the front of his coat and kissed him back with every sharp, frightened, furious, hungry part of herself. The city did not disappear. Her father was still under indictment. Caleb was still a mess. Sandra was still cooperating. The future remained full of lawyers, questions, scars, and hard mornings. But for that moment, on a balcony above the river, Millie felt the strange wonder of being wanted without being reduced. When they pulled apart, Roman rested his forehead lightly against hers. Millie breathed unevenly. That was very inconvenient. His thumb brushed once along her cheek. Yes. I have work to do. Yes. You are a distraction. Yes. You're supposed to disagree with at least one of these. I prefer accurate women. She laughed against him, and he smiled like the sound had undone him. Months later, the city had mostly chosen a version of the story it could understand. Gerald Holloway became a fallen titan. Caleb became the arrogant son who signed what he did not understand. Sandra became the mistress who turned witness before the ship sank. Roman Vitale became, depending on the newspaper, either a shadowy beneficiary, a criminal wrongly framed in part, or the most interesting man not charged with anything. Millie became something harder for them to name. Whistleblower was the clean word. Daughter was the painful one. Strategist became her favorite. She opened her own financial investigations practice in a brick office above a bakery that made the stairwell smell like cinnamon every morning. Her name went on the glass door. Millie Holloway, Forensic Financial Strategy. The first time she saw it, she stood on the sidewalk for 10 full minutes pretending there was something in her eye. Tasha brought champagne. Joelle sent a dry email saying the sign was legally readable. Elise sent another red dress, this one shorter and entirely unsuitable for court, which Millie kept anyway. Roman sent no flowers, because she had once said flowers from powerful men made offices look like crime scenes. Instead, he sent a simple card with one sentence: "You built the room." Millie framed it and told nobody. Her mother visited once. It was awkward, soft, and real, in the way new things often were when they had to grow through old damage. Caleb left 3 voicemails, then stopped when Millie's attorney responded. Gerald tried, through lawyers and interviews and one pathetic public statement about family betrayal, to make himself the victim of a daughter's ambition. It did not work the way it once might have. The evidence was too clean. The room of men he claimed to know had become a room of men claiming not to know him. And Roman stayed. Not always gently. He was still Roman. He argued with calm precision. He distrusted almost everyone. He sent security reports instead of normal good morning texts, until Millie threatened to block him on emotional grounds. He once tried to replace her office chair with one that cost more than her first car, and she made him return it on principle, then bought the same chair herself 3 weeks later, because it was annoyingly perfect. He learned that partnership with Millie meant negotiation, not command. She learned that accepting care was not the same as surrendering authority. Some evenings, after long workdays, he would arrive at her office with coffee and a pastry from downstairs, always asking before entering if the door was half closed. Sometimes she let him stay. Sometimes she told him she had deadlines and no patience for handsome distractions with moral ambiguity. He always smiled and left the coffee. 1 year after the gala, Millie stood with him outside the Arcadia Club again. Not for a Holloway event this time. The building had changed ownership after several members became allergic to headlines. A charity legal fund had rented the hall for a public corruption accountability dinner, which Millie found both hilarious and spiritually aggressive. She had been asked to speak, not as Gerald's daughter, not as Caleb's sister, as herself. She wore blue this time. Roman stood beside her, at the bottom of the marble steps, looking up at the windows where everything had cracked open. "Nervous?" he asked. "Obviously. You look calm." "I contain multitudes and mild nausea." His mouth curved. She looked at him. this feared man who had met her in the rain when she was muddy, furious, and carrying the first pieces of her freedom under one arm. He had not saved her. Not exactly. He had stood beside her while she saved herself, and made sure the men coming through the doors learned that she was not alone. That was better, harder, less flattering to him, more useful to her. Roman offered his arm. Millie looked at it, then at him. He waited, patient as ever. She took it because she wanted to. Inside, the ballroom glittered again, but it no longer felt owned by ghosts. People turned when she entered. Let them. This time, Millie did not scan the room for her father's approval, Caleb's smirk, Sandra's pearls, or her mother's quiet fear. She looked at the stage and thought of the microphone, the red portfolio, the exact moment an insult became a doorway. When someone had said she had it coming, they had meant humiliation, punishment, consequence. They had meant she deserved to be dragged back into place. They had been right about one thing. Millie Holloway had had it coming. Not shame, not silence, not some smaller life measured by men who could not count her worth. She had love coming, power coming, respect coming, revenge, yes, a little, because she was honest enough to enjoy the flavor when it was earned. She had laughter coming in dangerous cars, and cake without apology, and work with her name on the door. She had mornings without Gerald's voice in her head, and nights where no locked door meant fear. She had a man beside her who could frighten the city, but still asked before touching her hand. She had all of it coming. And this time, when Millie walked into the room, she did not walk away from her family's empire like she had lost something. She walked in like the first move had only taught her how to win.